Hey guys, welcome back to the architecture show. It's Arda here, aka Funky Designer 99. Today we're going to talk about sections. What are them, how to draw them, and how to make them look good. I will again walk you through my process and help you understand the key concepts so you can create your best sections and elevations. Sections and elevations are, after the floor plans, maybe the most vital things in architectural plans, but a lot of people have a hard time grasping their concepts and need help with them, including this guy. If you haven't watched the How To series episode 1, I would highly recommend that you check that out too, on right here, or it's like on the card boxes there, because a lot of the key concepts that we're going to talk about today have the same building blocks with the floor plans video. With that being said, I will go over the key concepts nevertheless. A good section and an elevation can make or break a plan, especially in school and architectural competitions. So let's get into it. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. As you can see, both in sections and elevations, just like in floor plans, you can use many different visual styles. But whatever style you use, how many colors, how many textures, or whatever the shit you use, the main point comes to this: having a clear hierarchy and order between elements so the reader can understand what they're reading. You have to give depth to it so it's easier to read, it's easier to understand the building in three-dimensional tiles, and also telling a story with whatever you're using: line weights, colors, textures, whatever it is, just like in floor plans, telling a story. So before we get into the whole key concepts, let's get the good old notebook out and tackle the first questions. What is a section? It is basically a cut through the body of a building. Remember how in floor plans we have cut the floor plans 1.2 meters above horizontally? A section is basically the same principle, but the clip plane, the cut, is not horizontal, it's vertical. So what is an elevation? It is basically the exterior views of your building from all sides, drawn usually in 2D, but again, no rules. You can draw it in 3D. Our goal as an architect is pretty simple, and it's pretty much the same one with floor plans: showing the clear hierarchy between elements, like what you see first and what you see last, showing the relationship between spaces and floors, showing the relationship between exterior and interior spaces, showing materials from both a technical perspective and a design one, revealing an interior and exterior volumes, and also relationships between materials like walls and floors and how they connect to each other in more of a technical sense. Now, about the classic gear question. For the basic drawing, I use my CAD program of choice, which is ArchiCAD, but again, tone is in the hands, tone is in the fingers, doesn't matter. Different styles may and will require different resources, but the most important thing is for you to understand these key concepts so you can just apply it to program any section, any elevation, anything. Let's get to the first key concept: line weights. Yes, again, line weights, I know, but it is really important. It's really, really, really important. You have to show the contrast between cut and uncut elements. The closer something it is, the thicker it will be. Thick. If we cut something like a wall or topography or something like that, it will be shown naturally as the thickest line or thicker than the other lines in plan. So before we get to the whole line weights thing, I just want to clarify the two terms that we're going to talk about right now: cut and uncut elements. So cut elements are the elements that you cut with the cut plane, with the clipping plane basically, and you see the insides of. And uncut elements are like the windows, some windows and some furniture that you don't cut but you still see in like an exterior view. It's basically like an elevation. With that out of the way, let's get to the real line weight stuff. So I have talked about this my specific line weight system in the previous video with line thicknesses in millimeters and stuff, and I would highly recommend that you check that out too, because you know, you can just copy it if you want. But the system I use is basically a 7-weight system. Let's take a look at what I mean with the 7-weight system. Is I have 7 weights, 0.1 to 0.7, like 0.07 millimeters, 0.1 millimeter, 0.13 millimeter, and stuff like that, which you can check out in the floor plans video, which I would again highly recommend that you check that out so you can see that. But let's get to the example and show you how I use them. So the very basic and most vital information here is the closer a line it is, thicker it will be. The farther it is, a lot thinner it will be, or thinner they become. When we cut a building, we see first the topography and the ground plane and everything. So naturally they should be the thickest lines, which that is why I use 0.7 for topography cuts. And next the stuff is walls and roofs and slabs, and which is why I use 0.6 for walls and roofs and slabs and their cuts, and I usually connect them together, which I use black lines with white filling, but you can use anything. It's basically it's a really personal thing. I use 0.4. I don't use 0.5 right now in the sections because I want to show the contrast between the thick lines and thin lines. That is why I just skip 0.5 and I just get to the 0.4, and 0.4 is doors and windows and their openings, and some stair cuts too. Then I have, just like in floor plans, 0.3 for cabinet cuts, and then I will just go to the uncut elements, which just like in floor plans, I use 0.3 for stairs, and so I use 0.2 for furniture and cabinets, and also 0.2 for like uncut windows and doors and stuff. So it's basically like an elevation view in section. If I want to show materials, I will use 0.1 line weight with a really light color, or it's a lighter color than the lines, to show like a brick wall or like wooden planks or something. But that is actually a really good segue to the key concept number 2, which is fills and shades and colors, which is again my favorite topic of all time. Like I said, you can use fills and shades and colors to show materials, to show shadows, to show depth and everything in your plan. Just like the example from before, you can use line patterns for basically wood planks, or brick pattern for wood. You know, you can use colors as wall paint colors, but I would suggest that you don't go overboard with them to keep things as understandable as possible. But doesn't mean that you should. It's always there. It's always the type of thing that you can use. And maybe the most important thing here, we use shades to give depth to a drawing, which is really important to basically show the room and the depth of a room and the depth of the building, and just for the 3-dimensional thinking experience for the reader. It is incredibly important. Doesn't mean it has to be there, but it definitely helps. So how I use this is I used black fills with 20% to 40% transparency. I use them to cast shadows. Now, your CAD program might be able to do this automatically, but in some cases people draw these shadows in 2D, which you can just look at it right now, the difference. I mean, you don't see the difference, it's just a workflow difference, but you can go both ways. It doesn't really matter, because let's say it together, the tone is in the hands. Yeah, as long as you show the depth, as long as you make it understandable, it doesn't really matter. Key concept number 3, scale elements like vegetation, people, and furniture. Again, the same concept. These are really important when you're showing the scale of a room to someone in your plans, and or adding vegetation and furniture is also, entourage is also a really cool guideline and portrays a specific story for your building. And it's all part of the experience for the reader, which is really important, because architecture is storytelling, like I always say. Just like in this one, I used tropical palm trees in this plan because this building is from Culver City. By the way, this building is a building that I use in my templates too. This is the Culver City case study house, which is from these guys. Wood and engram architecture or something. I don't know. I'll just write it on the screen. I would highly recommend that you check that out, which will be analyzing this specific project in a later video, but still you can check that out, and I would highly recommend that you do. There are palm trees in the area, and the overall vibe is very Californian, very mid-century desert, and like very tropical. That is why I've used orange lines. But if this was, or another project was, more of a forest vibe, I would maybe use more of a green color or something else entirely. It doesn't have to be like that. It's completely up to you. It's personal taste. With that being said, you don't have to use colors, and the vegetation and people and furniture and the general scale elements is basically just there. The function of a room basically, and also give a bit of more life and story to it. So it's all for that. With that being said, I would recommend that you use one principle in this, and that is, normally I don't like to say this, but the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid. I really don't like to say it in many cases because I don't like limiting myself, but it definitely helps in this case, and then also floor plans case. So the more crowded a plan is, the harder it is for the reader to understand it, and it's for their experience really shitty. So I would just refrain from using too much and just go with the KISS, baby. Go with the KISS. Yeah. Other than that, just go fucking nuts. Just make it easy to read, you know. This was basically it, but just for a recap, don't forget the line weights and hierarchy, cut and uncut elements and the contrast between them, use shadows and scale elements in your advantage, show depth, and tell a story. Give the drawing a feeling, a story, and KISS. But don't also forget to go fucking crazy with it. Just show your overall creativity in every side of it. And that was basically it. Thank you a lot for watching the video. Check the other videos out too. There will be a lot more coming in the coming weeks. So stay tuned, and I will see you later. Bye.